Hey, girl.
Hey girl, how the heck are you?
I am good. I am good. Welcome, everybody, to the season 2 finale of Politics But Make It Fashion. Come chat with us. And this will also be Chelsea's last episode with us on the podcast. So,
Are you just gonna say that right at the beginning of the episode? You're just gonna throw
yes,
it out there like
Chelsea,
that?
yes, because I've had DMs. Okay, because I've had DMs.
So people sliding into your DMs, were they
Yes.
cute?
Well, they're asking about where you're going. Like, why aren't you here anymore?
Well, that makes me feel really nice, especially with my unpopular opinions. People want to hate, but you all know you're gonna miss them. Period.
So, what have you been doing? We haven't been on here in the past couple weeks. I've been under the weather. We had over here on our side of things, we had a lot going on. Me and baby were in a pretty bad car wreck. So, my car was totaled. And so that's been kind of a whole thing, recovering emotionally, physically, and stuff from that. And
Girl, are we
not
talking
feeling
about the car wreck? Like, what's happening? Like, are we not talking about it?
girl. Okay, so like
Because I asked you about it, you didn't say anything, and I was like, maybe we're not talking about it. Maybe it's too soon.
this young man, okay, with his ID still up this way, okay, he was a
No
child.
way.
So there's an intersection that is stupidly made, and there's always accidents there. And he turned into traffic when I had the right of way. He couldn't see me, I couldn't see him. So we hit each other when he turned in. It wasn't my fault. Poor, like, he was, I felt bad for him, so now just dealing with insurance and not having a car, and like also being not really wanting to drive at all.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I'm kind of
traumatic.
over it. Yeah, I
Well,
get
and I
real
also feel like
anxious and
dealing with
stuff.
insurance, like we're still not old enough to be dealing with insurance. Like we're
Girl,
almost
I don't
40,
know
but
what I'm
like we are
doing.
not. I don't. Ooh, do they know what they're doing?
I don't
Girl,
know.
I don't know
I
either.
like I have no idea. I'm calling I talked to the other little boy's insurance yesterday, and it was like kind of helpful, but I'm still kind of like, okay, that doesn't really, I still don't know what to do.
You're like, thank you for that. Also, I don't know what that means. Like, now what,
Yeah. So
girl?
there's that. And the reason we're talking about that is because, like, so the accident wasn't my fault. And so everyone is like, oh my God, well, you should be getting a brand new car because they're just gonna cut you a check for your car and like you'll be on your way. And so I'm like, okay, cool, that makes sense. But no, just kidding, everybody. If you have a car loan, like most of us all do, then it goes to your loan. It doesn't go to you. So it pays off your loan, or does it pay off the whole loan? Who knows? Because that's up to them. And then you're kind of just like, if you want to then, I guess, move forward, you can like sue the person, you can sue like their insurance company. But I don't think it's that simple. Not then that's kind of where it is, and I'm not sure like what's happening with that right now. So
That is so stressful, and I feel
yeah,
like you said, even just like emotionally going through a wreck, like your nerves are shot, and then
yeah,
having to deal with like insurance, anything, girl.
girl,
Listen,
yeah. So
this
then,
is, but you know what? This is character building. Your character is going to be rock motherfucking solid after this. Like, who's gonna be able? Like, there's gonna be anything you can't do. You're gonna be like,
right,
oh, there's nobody handle it. Let me just tell you.
right. Oh my gosh, girl. So that's it. And then it's the
Like,
summer.
right.
So me and baby have been, just doing little different stuff here and there, going to music festivals, going to little events around the area.
You guys are always doing something fun.
Yeah, so that we went to this, it was called Burning Roses Music and Arts Festival here. So shout out to them. It was all women, like women-led bands, or women, most of the people in the bands were women. So women musicians, artists, vendors, and stuff. It was really cool. Kind of like a punk scene and stuff. So we had a good time. Jacqueline likes to watch
I
girl
feel like
bands.
I can totally see
So
you going to like Burning Roses.
yeah.
Like I'm at the Burning Roses
Yeah.
concert. Girl, that's so great. When does baby go back to school?
After Labor Day. What about you?
Girl, next week. I assumed after Labor Day. That's what I assumed because I feel like that's the logical decision to send somebody back to school
Because aren't you guys going on vacation?
In
Go-
October.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was like around Labor Day or anything.
I
Okay.
mean, we go down the shore on Labor Day, but like that's why I was like, oh yeah, like Tuesday, the 5th or whatever, or what day is that? Yeah, Tuesday, I think it's the 5th. They would go back to school. No, they're going back to school the 29th
That's
for
stupid.
3 half days. Girl, I can't stand it.
Okay, so
It makes me so mad.
so
It's so
like guys,
stressful.
I just need to know school people hi. Who's making this? Because first of all, when you do the half days, you know that now we can't work. Like, I don't know what kind of job you think everybody's having, but when it's half days like that, somebody has to drop them off and pick them up 3 hours later.
Well, and that's
Who's
what
doing
I'm
that?
well, okay, and now I rely heavily on my family.
Yeah.
They're going on vacation, so they're not
Makes
even going
sense.
to be.
Makes
They're going to
sense.
be like in the middle of nowhere, like not even close to here. So now I have to take a day off work. My husband has to take a day off work, and then I have to take a half day.
See,
It's like a lot more difficult for my husband to take off work than it is for
yeah.
me to take off work. But I'm like, listen, we got to get through these 3 days, and they're the first 3 days of school, so it's not like I want her to go, but I'm
See,
like,
and
this is a nightmare.
that's the issue, honestly. And for me, sometimes I'll end up not even doing a half day for her because it's easier to like take her to grandma's for the whole, you know what I mean, or something, or
Yeah,
like set up childcare so that the whole day, or I'm just gonna be home the whole day
I'm just gonna be
because
home the whole day.
it's yeah, it's too chaotic to try. I hate when they do the half day things. Like it's just ugh.
Girl, I know. The one day I was able to like schedule my work around the school, but I'm like, okay, even that is so minute what I'm doing because it's like, okay, I have to drop her off at 8:40 and then I have to be back there by 11:30 because I get at 11:45. Parking lot's this big. If I have any hopes of getting her on time, I got to be there 15 minutes early. It's like a whole thing. But
Yeah,
and then they're off on Friday, off on Monday, back to school on Tuesday, full day.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like, why are we even playing any of these games with like,
right, right,
and
yeah,
all the mum-ums and pop-ups are on vacation that week going into Labor Day. I
right,
can't. So I'm gonna
right.
start to sound bitter, but it's frustrating. It's
No, it
hard.
is. It's because the system is set up to have one parent at home and one parent working. It's set up for a two-parent household. So if you live in a household that's two parents and both of you work, stressful. And then if you're a single parent, it's like, how are you even going to try to figure that out and stuff? So,
Well, and I looked into like the aftercare program at the YMCA by me. Girl, first of all, the reviews are scathing, but it's not like, how like you look at reviews and you're like, you have one person that you just can't please, but everybody else is happy. The whole like the whole way there's like
yeah.
400 some odd reviews. They're horrible, specifically about the childcare. And then also, I know someone who's like, yeah, I took my kid out of there because they have a kid in there who's cussing everybody out, smacking
Oh,
everybody, which I'm heartbroken because he's obviously traumatized.
obviously in
However,
pain.
like, yeah, but then like they're not equipped. They're like 18-year-olds. They're not equipped to deal with a
Yeah.
child who's emotionally struggling. So then all the kids just kind of have to deal with it. So I'm like, and then also too, I'm like, I can't even afford the childcare at the Y.
Right.
So what am I
Right.
supposed to do? Girl,
Right.
it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. I don't know what the answer is. And then it's kind of like, okay, then
I
I
don't know
see
what the
why.
answer is either, but I just want to say to all of our listeners out there when people are having these conversations about people being on welfare or getting assistance and not working, this is a conversation that they're having because stuff is so expensive. Like Chelsea's saying at the Y, you're making a decision to either not have your kids there because or not work so that you're the ones home with your kids. Like it's so nuanced and there's no like right or wrong answer. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it and try to figure it out. It's kind of unsustainable and it's unfair for people. And so people really make the decision to like, well, I'm not going to work because if I start working, I lose my benefits and then I can't afford childcare right off the bat anyway. Like I had a friend who that happened. She had a great job at FedEx, but they kept putting her on like third shift, so she wasn't able to be there for her kids to try to get up in the morning to catch the bus and different stuff like that. And she had to make the decision to like leave her job so that she could make sure that her kids were getting back and forth to school on time and everything. It's ridiculous. It's
Well, and you know what I think is really crazy? Two things. One, like, first of all, literally, it's none of your business. So if you have something negative to say about somebody who's on a
well,
sentence, do you have any clue? You probably don't. Second of all, probably don't talk about what you don't know about. Just saying. And then also, I feel like, not to hate on America, girl, but I feel like
no,
America,
hate on America, girl.
Jesus, America, you in danger, girl. I feel
Girl, get it
like,
together.
I not, I feel like in other countries, I don't know about every other country, but I know in like the UK and like Norway, Denmark, those countries are set up to have some sort of like grace on the mom. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
they see the value of like, oh, the family unit, like the
Yes.
mother
Yeah.
being there for her child. Where like America, I feel like I hear about jobs like that and you think like, oh, why can't you just get a job from now let's think about this. Let's think about this realistically. Because
Realistically,
it's
right.
not gonna be get a job from 9 to 3 when the school hours are because you got to
No,
drop off at
because
8:40
Jacqueline, yeah, no,
and you got
Jacqueline
to get
has to be there at 8:10. Before 8:10, and then she gets out by I have to be there by 2.
right.
Some days
So
1:50. So
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like you have to really think about getting a job probably closer to like 9:30 in the morning and be done if it's local by 2:30. So you have a five what is that? A 5-hour shift? You have a 5-hour shift. And then when your daughter girl, my school does it too. Every Wednesday is like they get out earlier.
that, yeah,
When you
yep.
have a day like that,
Mine is Tuesday.
so but then I feel like you have these I don't know. I haven't heard of a ton. I feel like it's way more common for companies to be super stringent and like unacceptable. You have to be here, 6 hours or 8 hours, or they'll give you a 4 hour shift and they'll pay you $9 an hour, which after taxes you owe money. And then
And
I
now you
feel
don't
like,
have
and if you
insurance.
do, no, you don't have
Yeah.
insurance at the what? You don't have insurance at those jobs. And then
Yeah.
if they do kind of give you leeway, then they demand your whole life on the weekends. So
Mm-hmm.
then you still don't have childcare. You're still not spending time with your child. Girl,
Well, and
it's
then
a
if you
whole
have a
thing.
job where so I was looking at jobs where I would work at night or on the weekends because then I wouldn't have to deal with the school schedule. She would be home or I'd have to take her somewhere. It was so expensive that at the end of the month, I ended up owing $12. If I, like, when I calculated it all out to work weekends somewhere and to work like nights.
Right.
And and I was like, so I might as well just not do it because there's not enough. I would be owing the childcare people, that much
Right.
money or whatever. So
That's what I'm saying. It's so difficult.
yeah. So girl, so
And
that's
stop me when I start to
our
sound bitter about school
right.
starting. I
So
mean, I
that is
am
our
excited, but
back
I'm
to
like,
school
it's so hard.
anxiety here.
And you can't like ask another mom. You can't be like, oh, can you like grab because it's like you can't trust anybody.
Girl,
And you
no,
also
okay.
can't
And
put that
people tell me
on.
that. They're like,
No,
why
well,
don't you ask other moms? Or like, why don't you don't have anybody else who can watch her? And I'm like, first of all, actually do have a little bit of mom friends. Like I chat and stuff like that. Not everybody's super friendly. You don't know everybody, and other people have shit to do as well. And it's not like people are really open to say like, "Hey guys, at the PTA, hey, I'm a stay-at-home mom. If you guys need help, like I'm available." Nobody's really doing that. So who are you
no.
asking? Who?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and if you do ask somebody, it's weird. They're like, and I have one mom friend and she is really great. I would never ask her. I would never be like, yo. And like we're cool. I would never be like, girl, I'm 30 minutes late. Can you keep my child? I feel like it would still be weird. She'd be like, and then also too, like you don't know. Again, you don't know. Nobody knows anybody. You can't trust anybody anymore.
yeah,
I
yeah.
sound really dramatic and I sound really negative, but that's how I feel. It's hard. It's really hard.
No, it really, really is. It is.
I'm having one kid. I'm having no more kids. I'm having no more kids unless I become independently wealthy. I'm also almost 40, so I
Oh
just let it
God,
go.
we're no, we're not. What was it? We're
Women of a certain
spinsters.
age.
The women of
What?
30.
I feel good about that. Women of a certain age.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. So we wanted to talk about the movie Sound of Freedom. We're a little late on the uptake, guys, because I had a lot of stuff going on. But we
Being in
wanted
a car
to
accident and everything.
Right. We wanted to kind of talk about the movie and more importantly, talk about child trafficking and human trafficking, labor trafficking, sex trafficking. Like, there's so many different types of trafficking, whether it's kids, babies, teenagers, adults, older people get trafficked a lot for like domestic workers, nannies, and different things like that. So, yeah, so we both watched the movie and we wanted to talk about it and then kind of like talk about our takeaways and like how we wanted to impact this, like what we wanted to do kind of going forward. So the movie came out and it's starring Jim Caviezel, Jesus, okay, who played Jesus in the Passion of the Christ. He is a beautiful man. So I just want to start off by saying that because there is a
His
lot of controversy
eyes.
about this movie, but he's such a good actor and his eyes are really intense. Somebody said you could see the pain in his eyes. And I was like, because he
You
was
can.
Jesus and he was like on the cross and he was struck by lightning 2 times.
Nobody could ever play Jesus, but Jim.
But
Love him.
so the movie is roughly based on a true story about a man who left his government job and wanted to focus full time on going overseas and rescuing kids and being able to kind of be on the ground to help kids. He felt like his job wasn't doing enough, so he wanted to kind of go out and do more. And the man had a lot of kids. Didn't he have like 7 kids?
Six
He had,
kids.
he had a lot of kids. He had a lot.
That's a
So
lot.
and we're complaining about 1 kid, guys.
But
One kid. But
he's
I
got a
think
stay at home wife.
I was
He's
gonna
got a
say
stay at
his
home
wife
mom.
stayed home. Yeah, his
That's what I'm
wife stayed
saying.
home, so it's fine. So, what did you think about the movie?
So I really okay, I have to like organize my thoughts because I feel like every time I bring it up, I have like a lot of emotion attached to it. So there's, to be honest with you, there's parts that are like, I think a little bit cheesy.
Oh my God! Wait, when he was like, what did he say? All of God's children need saving, something, or
Oh, I didn't think that part was cheesy. He said God's children are not for sale. I was like,
no,
period,
when he
Jim,
said
period.
it was just the way it was like
Yeah,
God's
like
children are not, and I was like, okay, Jim,
there
relax. We
were
know,
there were
like,
some moments like that, but then like overall, I felt like the movie was well done. The thing I actually did a lot, like a deep dive into it because of the like how it was like becoming controversial, and I was like, wait, how is this in any way, shape, or form controversial? And I, you guys are going to hear my unpopular opinion, but I also feel like factually there's a lot of people involved with trafficking and they make a lot of money on it. So of course, like they're going to be like, and a lot of those people that are making money off of it are millionaires, billionaires. So of course they have a lot of say about what the media says. But anyway, I looked into the stories they were telling to kind of be like, is this fake? Is this made? Like, what is and the main, there's like an overarching story, but
mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different snippets in that one story from a lot of the cases that he's worked. I think it was like 4 or 5. It kind of encompasses four
Yeah,
or five different stories. So the overall story isn't exactly like a true story, but like there's like a lot of snippets in there that like they tried to cover as many cases as they
yeah,
could
yeah.
in there while it still made sense to the movie. So there's definitely like some fiction in there or whatever. But the movie I thought did a great job of like, first of all, bringing awareness, because a lot of the things that I saw after the fact of the movie, people were like, I didn't know that this was like an actual thing.
What do
And
you
I'm like,
like? Me
what
and you
this
had talked about that. Give me an example. Like, what do you mean
this
when
is like
you?
second only to the drug trade. And people literally, Americans all over the country were like,
Yeah,
wait, this actually happens? Yeah, second only to fentanyl. Like this like happens all the time. And so people were just so shocked. I saw people like really, really moved by it because I think the movie is difficult to watch.
yeah, yeah.
Like we were going, and like when you go to, I never go to the movies anymore, so we were like, oh my gosh, do we get snacks? And I'm like, probably not. I don't think anybody's gonna be able to eat through this. Like it's very disturbing, and they take you in the movie right on the edge to where like like you know what's going to happen, but they obviously don't fully show. It's very disturbing, it's very difficult to watch, but it is something that happens all the time,
Yeah, yeah.
to
So
these
with
literal children.
that, so I read that somebody, so remember when that movie Cuties came out about the girl
Cuties.
dancers? Anyway, it was a whole thing, but it was controversial because
It
of
sounds
the way,
controversial.
well, because of the way they depicted the girls, but it was based on what's really happening to them and how they're hypersexualized and different things. But I was gonna say is that in the movie, I think they did do a good job of kind of like showing what happens to them, even just by like pictures or film and silence. And they did a lot by silence where nobody's talking. I love movies. I love bad movies. I love good movies. I love stupid movies. So for me, watching a movie is always going to be like, I can always take it and love the art experience behind it, even if the message is weird or whatever. But I think they did a great movie, a great job with this, especially on the budget that they
Right.
had, and having an actor like Jim Caviezel be in there is good. And I do think that they showed a lot of what could happen in the realities of it. My biggest issue is kind of like you said, there's a lot of people who don't know about trafficking and they don't know how serious it is. But I think it's one of those things where it's like rape, where we have this big boogeyman, and that's not normally the person who's doing it. Like, we need to teach people the signs and what to look for. And it's not just about being at Target and watching your six and making sure that some guy's not following you around a grocery store, which happened to me before. But it's also online dating and getting into a relationship with somebody. It's parents who are in the throes of addiction, who are selling their kids. It's
Literally
all
selling
these,
their kids.
yeah, it's these little kind of areas. It's kids that are in foster care. It's foster parents pimping out their kids or letting people come do things. So there's so much stuff that's happening right underneath our noses that's not always some foreign guy coming to steal your kids. And for me, that's kind of where I just get nervous, because I'm like, that's not all that's it. And a lot of little girls and stuff that are locally getting trafficked and things, they're not just being taken off the street in a van. They're being groomed, they're being lured, and we need to teach people what to look for in that, because that is how these things are really happening every single day.
Right. Well, and I think too they did a good job at showing, like in Colombia, where it took, well, I don't know if like the movie took place in Colombia, but it was like basically this real life person who is
Yeah,
actually still awaiting trial currently. um she came from a literal, what do they call it, slum lord or slum town, like it's a
yeah,
very very impoverished area in Colombia, and she became this beauty queen, like this beautiful person. So she was like beloved within her city and revered, and just like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, like you're doing this incredible thing, you're like making your way in the beauty industry. And she kind of, well, she's awaiting trial because what they're finding out is that she used
her
her
position. Oh,
to speak to a lot of these impoverished families to take their kids, but
yeah.
like they don't all have TV, they don't all have
Mhm.
radio, nobody's using a
Yeah,
smartphone, nobody has internet. But these kids were like taken because basically she was like, hey, your kid has a shot just like I did.
yeah,
Hey,
yep,
I was
yep,
poor
yeah,
just like you're poor, and now look what
yeah,
I'm doing. So this is like a real story. She took all these kids and she's selling them. She
yeah.
took them for like a photo shoot. And then the parents are more naive because they're not constantly overloaded with TikTok and information, all this stuff. So the kids were
And I think a
taken,
lot of I
whatever.
think a lot of parents are actually really like that anyway. Because I don't know if you remember that story about the girl who is like being abused and raped like in her own home. And the guy was like raping her in the house because the parents liked him and he was going to their church and they were all like hanging out. It was like a whole thing. But so many of these stories are somebody comes into your life and
Tricks
influences
you.
not the kids but the parents, and builds a
Exactly.
relationship with the parents, and has even maybe an inappropriate relationship with the parents, and then is able to come in because she came in, she built the trust with the parents first, you know, hey, this is me,
Exactly.
this is, you know, and there's still agencies out there who are using modeling to get kids, who are using beauty pageants and flyers and different things, and kids are coming home saying, hey, you know, I found this guy and he said he wanted to take pictures of me, like, you know, is it okay if me and my friend go to do that? And to do that, and boom, that's a way to get into being trafficked. That's not necessarily getting kidnapped like right off the street. And that, I mean, that lady, and the thing about that lady too is I wonder if she was groomed growing up and was a victim, because you don't, at least I personally feel like you don't just all of a sudden are like 20 years old and like, hey, I'm going to start stealing kids. Like, if that was your life as a kid and now, you know, as an adult, you're still a victim and you're still entwined with that. And people might say, well, why doesn't she leave, or why can't she get away, or why doesn't she stop? She's so brainwashed and broken down at that point that, you know, kind of, you know, Stockholm syndrome, now she's doing it to other people with that.
Well, and you know what too? I feel like maybe she was victimized, or maybe she was victimized in like once she got into the talent shows. Like
Yeah,
who
yeah.
knows what they did? Or maybe she got a taste for money. You remember she's coming from, people don't fully understand. I know people personally who have been in desperate times, and they will
Mm-hmm.
go farther than anyone. And I don't think we can fully understand unless we understand. When I say these people are desperate to us, we're like, oh, desperate to get a nail appointment. Like she's been in a desperate situation. Like when you're poor and you're hungry, there's a lot more you're willing to do than
Mm-hmm.
what we might think is normal. So who even knows too if she like realized, like, because the money, this is $150 billion industry.
Yeah,
So for her
yeah.
to even get a taste of the money that she was able to get, like, who knows? But
Right.
that was one
Because
of
you're
the
talking
stories that
about
they did.
going from living outside on the street to literally eating trash to now she has a home. She
And she's
has people,
somebody.
yeah, she has people
Yeah.
taking care of her and all those things. And the same is for here. Like we, you know, we talk about struggling and stuff like that, but we've never been in deep, deep poverty. Like there's people
Right.
that live here. And so there are people who will sell their children or loan their children out or different things because they're in such desperate situations. Not saying that that's right, but I don't think we'll ever fully grasp that type of poverty
Desperation.
and
Yeah.
that type of desperation, you know. And
Right.
they're thinking, well, this, you know, you're going to sacrifice this 10 minutes of being with this person, and now I'm going to be able to buy us food, you
Right.
know. And
You know that, yeah, desperate times. So I
yeah,
like that was one instance, and I think that that speaks a lot to what the specific, they base this character off of like the real person that you were talking about at the beginning. And I think that's what a lot of what he does. He goes to a lot of these impoverished countries and
yeah,
sees a lot of that kind of like snatching of children or grooming of children and taken away. And he does work with cases in the United States too, where it is a little bit more, I don't know what you would call it. It's a little bit more like, oh my gosh, it turns out to be freaking your next door neighbor's uncle that you thought was cool and was at your barbecue is
yeah,
actually taking
yeah, yeah,
advantage. Or or college kids who are like realizing what you can do on the dark web and how much money you can make.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
we've talked about this before, that there was a girl who was literally in high school and she was trafficked 3 years of her high school experience, and she went home every night.
Oh yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
would pick her up in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of the night. They would rape her.
Mm-hmm.
She would have to do whatever. They'd threaten to expose pictures of her and like label her as a slut. So she
Yep,
was literally a slave, but she was like with her family. She was
yep.
like sleeping in her own bed, like crazy. So there's so many different avenues of it, but I feel like the story did, like the movie did hit on like that kind of aspect of trafficking that you
Yeah.
do see in more impoverished nations, and like that actually happened with that beauty queen. And then you also see a little bit, a snippet of like, this is like, I'm probably gonna cry, so I'm sorry if I get upset like in front of you guys, but like when they also in the movie they film them taking down a pedophile who was sharing child sex abuse material online, and like that's an actual person that he took, like
Mm-hmm.
that's an actual story that he was in, and he had to like literally pretend like he was a pedophile too, and like he was to catch this guy and to find
Yeah.
out like where he was storing his material. And it was like 2 million pieces of child sex abuse material, and it was all archived, like you would see,
Yeah.
and like it was like
Yeah.
beautifully archived. 2 million pieces.
He said, I have a Rolodex.
Right,
Okay.
I know, I've got a Rolodex. And like anyway, so like I think they did a good job of that, because that was something else too. I want to make sure that I'm saying like the right numbers. But like with that, I'm glad that they hit on that in the movie too, because we have seen a 5,000% increase
Ooh.
in adolescent sex videos since 2018.
Mm.
5,000% increase. And America is the number one consumer of child sex abuse materials right here,
Mm.
the US of A. So I'm glad that they kind of broached
Do
that
you
topic of it
I
too.
was reading something about the states, like you can go by state of the highest concentrations, and a lot of them are like out, I think it was like Utah, Oregon, and stuff. Like it's a lot
The
of
middle
them
of
are the
nowhere.
places that are really religiously repressed, and you know what I mean, and very stringent and stuff like that. And I don't know why, guys, I don't, but and that's kind of the way it goes. But I think one of the things is about the criticism of this movie is people don't like, what's the guy's name? Because I want to call him Jim Caviezel.
Oh, Jim Caviezel. Wait, do you mean the officer, Tim
Yeah,
Ballard?
Ballard. There we go. Is because people don't like him because he's kind of a douche a little bit. And
I
I,
love him. I think he's
I
awesome. But
girl,
I also,
well,
one thing they really in the movie, they like, I feel like it was
I mean,
weird.
in real life, not necessarily but some of the stuff that he says in real life and the stuff that he does and the way he goes about things.
Oh, I like him. I
So
mean, like in the video, in the movie, they like kind of portrayed him as like this, like they were like worshiping him a little bit, and I was like, okay. And then in like all these interviews, he's like, please stop, like this is weird, like I'm not. He's like, me and my team, like please stop. But yeah, like it's crazy. It's crazy to see like some of the stuff that they brought to life, that kind of brought to the view. It brought a ton of what's the word, realization, I feel like, to people, especially in our country, with us being the number one consumer of this garbage. um so I'm glad that it brought whatever. I'm glad that it brought like a recognition of this craziness that happens all over the world, but it's also happening right here. And yeah, like I'm glad that I like this one girl I watched. I think she's like 19. She has 6 younger brothers and sisters. She was a wreck. She was like devastated. And she was like, I just saw the movie and I'm looking it up online because she couldn't believe the numbers. She was like, I don't believe this. Like, and so she's looking at the numbers and she was like, great. The most effective way this happens is online for Americans. Like American
yeah,
kids can get trafficked and pulled in, groomed through online stuff. And she's like, every one of my siblings has an iPhone. Like, you know what I
right.
mean? And like her parents aren't aware, like, you know what I mean? Nobody is thinking like, oh, someone's gonna lure my, like, what do you call that, middle class suburban home child into
Mm-hmm.
like whatever. So like it just raised awareness, and I feel like I loved that. And
Yeah.
it is such a problem. It literally is second only to the drug trade. And I think about living where I live. I used to work about 15 minutes away from a specific place. It's basically like a Skid Row, except it's in Philadelphia. And it's basically where addicts go to live, and it's like nobody messes with them, and they call
In
it
what,
zombie land because you
Kensington?
will literally, Kensington,
Yeah.
you'll literally walk through and you can't, like, there's trash everywhere, there's people falling out in the street, like it's like
Yeah.
it literally looks like the apocalypse happened. And so like I think of, and I meet people all the time who have been so heavily affected by drugs and the drug trade. And I had somebody specifically who was an addict, was in recovery, and like literally ended up going back into it. Like, just it's bad. So I see that all, like, on a consistent basis, like how rough the drug industry is, and I'm like, holy crap! And this thing is only second to that. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's horrifying. It's horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are a big commodity. And like we said at the beginning, when selling people makes a lot of money, and you can sell people for so many different things. I mean, even down like adoptions. There's a, black market adoptions where you're buying kids that are basically been trafficked, and now you're buying them. And yet for you, the end result might be good, but that still doesn't take away from where those kids are coming from, or, domestic laborers. When I lived in Qatar, when I lived in the Middle East, I lived in Doha. My parents were contractors. There is an insane amount of slavery there. When they had FIFA, the World Cup and stuff, one of the things they were highlighting was the amount of slavery that is still going on in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, and people are trafficked to where people are like, they'll go over to the Philippines and get women and girls and promise them jobs, and whether it's domestic jobs, nannying jobs, working in a store, anything, modeling jobs. And they front the money for them, and they bring them over to the Middle East, and they take their passports and they set them up somewhere, and basically they're stuck. Like, they either have to work off an insane amount of debt, but they're accumulating debt every single month because they're tacking on their living expenses, their food, and all of that stuff. So technically, you're never going to get out of that situation. And that's the same thing that they do here for people here. They bring them over to America. They promise them, hey, you're going to work in a nail salon. They take their passport, they're charging them rent for their chair, they're charging them rent to live, all their food. So technically, they're never going to make enough money to be able to buy their passport back and get out of those situations. And then when these people are in a situation, they signed up for one thing, and now they could be put in a different situation. You could say, okay, I'm going to sign up for nails, and now you're working as a nanny and you hate kids. Or now you're in a house with abusers who are doing things to you, and different things in it. And it's so prevalent, and it's so happens so often, and you see it. And I had met maids and domestic workers and stuff who were abused and raped by their people who owned them, and who held their passports, and people weren't allowed to have phones and were beaten. And there's no controls over that. And even the same as in America, if you get a domestic worker through the same channels like that, there's no avenues for that person. Who are they going to call? Immigration? Like, they probably don't even speak English. They're not like,
Yeah.
they don't have access to a phone. They don't have, and what are they going to tell you? Hey, they brought me over here. Like, you know, um, so then kind of like, what are the recourses for those people to even try to get out of those situations? Cause you're just stuck. Where are you going to go if you don't have a passport, if you don't have an ID, if you don't really speak the language? You don't really, and there's places where they keep almost naked to where you can't, where are you going to go? Like, you're going to run out the house in bra and panties because they're keeping you in a house so unclothed that you can't even go outside, to keep you from stopping to be able to go outside and different things. And it's terrible. The whole thing is just bad. And when you add in foster care, it's a whole, like.
Well, and that's actually something that he was speaking to too. He didn't really. I was watching an interview with Tim Ballard. He didn't speak to the number in America, but he said he's like I can't even give you a percentage of the studies because we're still looking into it. But he's like, it's about a 98% chance if you are in an orphanage in another country, you're going to be abused, like sexually
Yeah.
abused, assaulted, used as workforce, like labor force. And those are in like trusted things like orphanages. And like, you're a little orphan. What are you going to do? All the things, like all the ways that that can affect you. And it's insane. But one thing they said in the movie that when I tell you, I like had to control my sobs from coming out when he said this. One of the guys was like, yeah, it's taking over the drug trade. And the guy was like, yeah, why sell a bag of dope one time when you can sell a 5-year-old 6, 7 times a day, every day for the rest of their life?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I logistically, I have questions. I have questions. And guys, you're our people, so I feel like you probably have similar questions. Now, these may be silly, but I wonder, when they're selling these people, like, they have to stink. They have to be full of diseases. They have to be dirty. Like, who is going in there st- like, to have sex with somebody on like a dirty mattress with, I don't know, maybe no protection? Like, they're cut up, they're burned, they're high, they're dirty, they're stinky. But like I don't understand, and I maybe this is just my brain trying to like make sense of it. But logically, like what is appealing about that besides just the fact that it maybe is somebody who is not going to fight you? Like if is that
I
just
wonder,
the threshold?
I think there's a lot of shame associated with it, even though they come off like monsters. When you're a grown man and you weigh 268 pounds and nobody wants you, I'm talking to you, you nasties. When nobody wants you, nobody thinks you're cute, you're not attractive, you have nothing to offer somebody. And on top of that, you like 5-year-olds or 3-year-olds, even 1-year-olds. You're going to do what you got to do to get what you want. And I feel like, so I think that that might go to the mentality of like the kids are dirty, disease, whatever. So I think that that might play, they're desperate to get whatever they want in whatever the way they want. But I also
Because when
don't
I
know
was
that
watching
every,
the movie, that's kind of what I was like, who is going into this place and like
but I also don't know that
touching
they,
anything in
I don't
there?
know that, I don't know that they would also keep I would think that they would want the kids to look like a certain type of way.
I mean, some places I'm sure are that
Yeah.
they're probably more of like a brothel type where they're living there, they're able to shower and probably have a room. But even still, some of the places, like when I was in Thailand, uh, some of the places that I had seen were like I'm talking about, where like there's a mattress on the floor, there's a girl naked on the mattress, you pull a sheet back and you walk in, and it's and for me personally looking at it, I was like, I just don't that. Do you need some sanitizer? Like I wanted to shower. So in my head, logically, I'm just like, there's nothing appealing about this besides like maybe because she's just laying there and like just yeah, girl, I could go on about some stuff in Thailand that we would have to talk about, not on here.
Girl, I can't even imagine. But I feel like I think that especially when it would be like a minor, like a lot of, like that's what they say too, like the younger
Mm-hmm.
the younger kids go for more money and they're like a hot commodity. I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw up. But like with
Nah, girl,
that
because I
too, I
learned
feel like,
something about babies, how they like the babies because they still have that sucking motion in their mouth from nursing. And that took me out for weeks. Like I was done. I was like, no more internet, no more nothing. I can't, I'm not reading nothing. I'm good.
yeah.
That took
Actually,
cause like I couldn't get it. Like I'm like, okay, I don't
I don't
understand
I don't get it. I don't get it.
logically and physically how is this happening with a child. And then I learned that and I was like, fuck, okay. And now I wish I didn't know any of that
Yeah, no, I wish I
information.
didn't know any. That's the thing I think that is super difficult about all of this, and that's something that they actually say at the very end of the movie. Jim Caviezel kind of addresses people. This is ugly to talk about. This is disturbing to think about. This is overwhelming when you look at the numbers. Like, well, even when I say like, oh, it's $150 billion business, it's like that's just a number because it's so high. And you think of like 2 million pieces of child sexual abuse material, like that's such a large number. It becomes like it's almost like, oh, like 2
Yeah.
million, like it's
Well, when
so
you think about how
overwhelming.
many, like if you have, 4,000 pictures on your phone,
Yeah,
that,
like
that's
fully.
4,000 pictures and videos of babies and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
And it's it's insane to think of how horrifying it is. And like literally, like this is the thing, like this is like the thing for me where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm losing sleep over, this is what I'm struggling with, this is what I'm like laughing at lunch about and then remembering and then instantly like devastated. And like it's a horrible thing. So I think a lot of times people don't talk about it in that sense because it's not pretty to talk about, it's horrifying. And then
Yeah.
also too, a lot of these they were doing a poll on survivors
Oh
and then they
God.
stopped the poll because they were like, how many survivors are out here that won't even speak of it? Because it's like,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about your uncle raping you? Do you want to talk about being abused at 3 years old? Like, do you even know that you were abused? Like, it's like such a like bad thing, but the reason why, again, like I'm glad that the movie was out there because it did raise awareness. It's I've seen so many people who are like, I'm researching it now, and I'm like, whatever. And it's like there has to be something, like something has to be said about it, as ugly and horrifying and evil as it is. Something has to be said.
And I
Something
think
has
this
to
is
be
why
done.
sometimes you have to not necessarily consume media that you don't agree with. But yeah, I think sometimes you have to, because in watching this movie, there was a lot of controversy, but I also know a lot of people who still went and watched it who were liberals, who were Democrats, because they could look above, say, the organization and who was in charge, but is the other side willing to do that? If this was a liberal movie that came out with Holly Weird, would conservatives and Christians still have the same, hey, let me still go check this out even if I don't agree with it? Would there still have been that and I don't feel like there is, because I think a lot of times if it's looked at as liberal or democratic, it's just shut down and nobody wants to look at it if they don't agree. And I think this is why you have to sometimes look at things and read things that aren't necessarily like, Hitler wrote a book called Mein Kampf. It's one of the books that's banned all the time. I read it because I wanted to know, what is this about? What is in here that's so bad? Kill a Mockingbird is something that's banned a lot. Why? I'm reading it. I want to know why. The controversy about this movie. What is the issue? Let me watch it. Let me see what's going on, and let me take the factual things from this, and what can I learn, and the other stuff, you can just kind of discard, but you have to be open and honest and willing to have those conversations and willing to have those uncomfortable conversations and things like that. And for me, it rolls right into politics, because it's about, well, what are our legislation and what are our laws doing? Because that's what keeps me up at night. I know that there's bad people out there. I grew up and I was sexually abused when I was a kid. I know that there's pieces of shit out there. What keeps me up is the fact that there's all these other people along the way who are also pieces of shit who don't do anything. So it's
Exactly.
it's it's the police officers when a person comes in and they're supposed to be taking your statement and they don't believe you and they don't even write anything down. I've
Yeah.
had that happen to people where they've gone to a police station to report something and they don't even write shit down, you know, or they don't take you seriously and they say, there's not enough evidence here, we're not gonna do anything, or they don't believe you, or now, you tell your parents and they don't believe you. Now you're ostracized, or you talk about your uncle who did something and you still have to go to family reunions with him. You still have to go to Sunday dinners. Um, the teacher that got accused of something is still at the school. Why? Why aren't we doing things that actually stop people who are the crazy ones from doing this? Why aren't we prosecuting these people? Why aren't these people in jail forever? Why aren't these people ever getting out? I was just watching some true crime thing, and there was a guy who raped and abducted a child and killed a child and got out of prison and did it again. And I was like, I don't. There's people who, and the person on this show said there's people in jail for weed for their life. And we are letting out people who rape and molest and do things to little kids. And that's what keeps me up at night, because there's always going to be that evil person out there. But what is everybody else doing? And people talk about, oh, well, the pedophile rings in Hollywood. Where's the police? Where's the district
Yeah.
attorneys? Where are the sheriffs? Yes, there are people who are sick and disgusting. And I really get that. And that's a whole separate issue. But where's everybody else along the way who is supposed to be stopping these things and doing those things? Because there's a lot of other people who are failing. Where are our politicians and our legislators that say that, yeah, know what? If somebody can be in jail for weed for 80 years, then if you touch a kid, you can be in jail for 90. Like,
Well,
you know,
especially because factually, abuse, not necessarily child sex abuse, but sexual abuse and sexual crimes have the highest recidivism rates. And that's
yep.
proven.
Yep. It's
So
actually
why are we
almost
getting
proven that
probation
you
for
can't
3
cure
months
them.
when we rape somebody?
Right. Right.
When it's clearly factually proven. And like, and like, girl, when you were saying like, liberals who went to see the movie isn't like, I'm glad liberals want to see it because this isn't a Republican issue. This
No,
isn't a
no, it's
conservative
not.
issue.
It's not. But
This,
I'm just
like,
saying, though.
a child predator will come for you whether you are
No,
Democrat,
I'm just saying,
Republican.
Chelsea. I'm not saying that the movie is, but when you like the guy, a lot of people don't like Ballard. And he said a lot of stuff. Jim Caviezel has said a lot of crazy things that I personally do not agree with at all when it comes to this movie and when it comes to them doing press for this movie. There were things said that are disgusting that I didn't like. But I was willing to rise above that and say, I'm still going to see it. So that's what I'm talking about. It's not necessarily anything in the movie specifically said Republican, specifically said that. I'm not saying that.
Well, yeah,
But
I
I'm
think that
talking about,
people should overlook that all the time. I feel like I overlook that stuff all the time when I watch movies on Netflix. I'm like, I know like the creator of this movie, and I know he is completely against what I believe or but I also like, this movie has nothing to do with that. So I'm like
yeah.
gonna watch the movie. I feel like there's lots of, things that you can disagree with, but also I think too, like the message in the movie is clear, and the um goal of like what these people are doing is clear, and it's to save people that are being trafficked, period, whether you're conservative or you're whatever, or whatever like side of the
Yes,
table you
but then
fall
when the
on.
person who's in the movie is talking about conspiracies like Pizzagate and different things like that, it does make it hard for people to want to go and watch it because they're like,
But I also think it's really difficult to dismiss people who talk about Pizzagate or things like that, because I think there is so much thing, like you were just saying, like Hollywood pedophile rings, and like nobody doing anything about it. Survivors who have come forward and been like, hey, guess what? This person did this to
yeah,
me and they were president of the United States, and they're like laughed off. Is that person a liar? Maybe they are. Or maybe they were actually raped by a former president of the United States. Like, it's like nobody does anything because sometimes they're in power or they're being paid by the people in power. And you're right. Sometimes it is a conspiracy theory, but because of the way that, like, no one is going to cover it, and that, like, it's no one's going to be like, yeah, this is a bad thing. Like, people in Hollywood, it's like radio silence out there on this movie. And it's because like, oh, so and so said something like during press or whatever. Nobody's able to come. Do you know how many douchey things everyone says? I feel like in press, and I'm not a Tim Ballard worshiper. I think what he's done is incredible. I'm all about that mission. I don't know about him, like, whatever personally. Same with Jim Caviezel. I think he's a great actor, but like, but I also think that like I can't stand that when somebody's like, when it's like an issue that like a Republican or a conservative raises, then all of a sudden it's like an issue. Like, girl, what's it called? Rolling Stone had such a problem with this movie, but then like the other movies that you see, like SVU, I specifically saw in the Rolling Stone article, it was like the audacity, the idiocy that like the person who plays Tim Ballard would take a victim to get food by himself. Obviously, they don't do that. It is
yeah,
still a movie, and it also
yeah,
isn't saying every single event is true. Same like in SVU. Like, we all know that the cop isn't taking the kid for French fries, but we can
yeah,
look past it, and nobody's
right,
raising red flags about SVU because we know it's a show and it's
right.
based on true events, but whatever. But like things like that, where I'm like, so the whole movie is a crock of shit, even though it's based off of all these real things that actually happened, documented, filmed, like all these things
Yeah.
actually happened,
Well, and
because
I will
you
say
don't like
too,
the
though,
guy.
Chelsea, some of the like look with the name Underground anything, okay, they could have came up with something different. That is gonna,
I actually read why, but see, this is going to be
but
something
see,
that I
but you're
feel
not
like,
black though. But you're
so
not black.
I'm not allowed to say that
No,
that's
no,
amazing.
I'm not saying that, but I don't think it's gonna twinge you the same way when you hear it and then you see a picture of Harriet Tubman on her knees in front of this white man carrying a baby. I don't think it's gonna do the same thing to you that it's gonna do to me. That I mean,
Well, I
and
don't
I
think
think
it's
that's
going to
fair because
be the same thing.
if you saw something as a man, you wouldn't react to it the same way a man would. And I think that's okay to say. And I think it's okay for me to say, as a black
Yeah.
woman, I would react to something maybe differently than you because I'm black. And
Right.
with it, I feel like it just co-ops this whole thing. And it might be, it's something that white people might have a bias to that's not on purpose. It's not malicious or anything. So you're not going to automatically kind of go to that. But I'm sorry, hearing that it's called the underground whatever, and then seeing that picture, girl, I was just like, why would you do this? Like, why, if this is such a good thing, why would you even go this way and not just come up with your whole own thing when you already know, like, the history of slavery, the history of the Underground Railroad, the fact that we can't even teach Black history half the time now in these places, and you want to co-opt the name and then have a picture of Miss Tubman on her knees. Like,
Well, he didn't.
it,
He also didn't paint that picture, but
he
also
didn't paint it.
when I first saw it, I was like, I looked at it, I was like, oh, Harriet Tubman's in the front because that was like her thing, and you were like, oh, she's on her knees, like I never, but maybe because I'm not Black, but I did look at it and I was like, yeah, she's leading the way, like she did, and that's literally where he. Those are his heroes, the great abolitionists. Um, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, like those are the people who led the way. And that's like, he was like, they did this 300 years ago and it's still happening today. So, like, that's where he came up with it. These are like his heroes. So, I guess in my mind, I never looked at it as like, but again, maybe I'm not allowed to, I can't do that
No,
because I'm
no,
white.
no, please don't say that. Please don't get, like, I don't want you to get defensive or anything. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to say that. What I'm saying is you're going to look at it different. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're not allowed to have an opinion. I'm
but I
not
agree
saying you're
with
not
you.
allowed to say it. I'm saying you're going
I
to
agree
look
with
at it
you.
different. Because
Yeah,
when
we are
Black
going to look at
people
it different.
were looking at
We're
that,
gonna
they
look at
were
it
like,
different, but I feel like in for me, my husband's not like this. My husband does not agree with this. But for me, I think that intent matters. And I've also been personally in situations where like I've said something that's offended people and I'm like, I don't even know how you could have twisted it and finagled it and made it into that to make it
yeah.
mean that. But you obviously took it that way, and I'm devastated because I absolutely didn't mean it like that. And so I think like that's the thing where I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, this is an incredible like he's like giving homage. He's like, this is they started it and like we got to end it because like slavery
I
is
think that
even more.
intent. I think intent does matter, but I'm gonna tell. So I'm gonna tell you. Take it back to my boo, Kim K. Okay, when she first started her like lingerie line with Skims, it was called Kimono. Okay, cute name. I thought it was adorable. I'm not Asian. Asians had an issue with it because they felt like it was use of the word kimono, which is sacred to them, which is something that is meaningful and important to them. She heard the criticism. She took the name down. She changed all the tags on the clothes, okay, and put it back out because a group of people said, hey, collectively, this is something that means something to us. Me, Black Girl Amber, saw kimono, cute. Oh my God, I can't wait to buy it. Take my money. They saw it and they were like, just come up with a different name because that's really just too close to something that we hold sacred. Why can't it be seen as the same thing when Black people raise alarms against stuff? Like, we all know what the Underground Railroad is. Why? So to me, I look at it as that, like that. I wasn't personally offended by the term kimono. I didn't, my first thought wasn't even anything about it because that's not my culture. But I'm going to listen to the people whose culture that is and take that and say, hey, maybe I don't understand because I'm not Asian. That doesn't offend me. That doesn't hurt my feelings. I don't need to be defensive about it. That doesn't mean I'm stupid. That doesn't mean I'm not allowed to have an opinion. It means I'm not Asian. So, like, I don't know. And so I just don't understand why it can't be kind of like, in my head, it's a very similar concept. And so that's what part of the controversy was with him is his reaction to the criticism to that the people who are other people who like this movie or people who are supporting their reactions to people's criticisms of that and their very racist reactions to that and his reaction about the picture, you know, and other people's reactions to that. And I think that culminates kind of in a lot of things. So for me, in my head, it's like, yeah, I may not understand the nuance of something because I'm not in that culture, but I am empathetic and kind enough to know, like, if this whole group of people is kind of saying, like, dude, can you just maybe tweak this a little bit? You know, who am I to tell everybody who's Asian that kimono is fine because I think it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that, but I also hear like I can see taking something sacred like kimono and putting it on lingerie and that being offensive, where this guy is like, this work is not done. That slaves, abolitionists, like that started this whole movement. And us looking, he's not looking at like, oh, black slaves
But
versus
how do
this.
you
He's
know
like,
that though? You're not him. We don't know what his.
because well, from
We don't.
everything that I've ever seen him say, all the things that he's doing for slavery worldwide, no
But
matter
does
what,
that make it
whatever.
better? Does that make it okay just because he feels like he's doing the right thing? She could
No,
have
what
felt
I
like she was doing the
but I
right
didn't
thing
finish my
too.
but I didn't get to finish my thought.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Kimono, using that for lingerie when it's a sacred thing, I can understand why people would be offended. But this, he's not looking at like black culture versus white culture. He's looking at slavery, which has affected all, so many black people, but it's also still affecting every culture you can think of. And so I think to him, he's like, I'm not taking something sacred to you. I'm like, slavery is
But
still
does it
happening
okay?
today.
But that doesn't matter. I'm sure that she didn't think that she was doing anything offensive either. I'm not saying he's doing something offensive on purpose, but at the end of the day, it is what it is.
But why
And
is that
it
offensive?
doesn't.
I guess that's my thing is like, I don't understand why someone who has understanding of slavery would be like, it's not okay because Harriet Tubman was only a pillar for black slaves. Like he thinks Harriet
No,
Tubman's
it's
a
not
pillar for
about
all
that. It's
slavery.
just about something that is traditionally very American, traditionally in the diaspora of Black American people, to where we still are fighting for our rights today. We are still trying to be able to teach kids Harriet Tubman. We in Florida, you can't even teach about the Underground Railroad. So for this white man to come in and co-opt something and use it, and now he can talk about it and it's fine, but we're not even allowed to talk about it, that's the problem. That's the problem. And it's a huge issue. And I don't think it's okay. And whether he's doing something right or not, I'm not taking away from what he's doing. I think what he's doing is
So wait,
great.
In Florida, you're not allowed to talk about the underground. You can't talk about Harriet Tubman. She doesn't
You
exist.
can
Like
you
she's not
can
allowed.
talk about Harriet Tubman. You can talk about
And that
certain
she
things.
saved literal slaves from
What,
white
girl? I don't
oppressors.
talk to DeSantis. I don't. I'm not in there making the rules. But that's a whole separate.
This,
But
but
that's a whole
see, like,
separate
and this
conversation.
is, but this is probably going to be something which I also have another very, very close friend who is African American. And there are certain things that, like you said, I think I'll never see it that way because I'm not a black woman. But I do think that sometimes this stuff ends up separating us more than it ends up uniting us. And then now it's like, like again, it's like
Because I
I
feel
don't.
like I'm going to say something that's going to be unpopular opinion. Because I feel like a lot of times nobody cares about what we say in our opinion at all because we're the small percent of the population. So we don't matter. Because basically, it's like, okay, well, this guy came up with it, and because he thinks it's okay, then it's fine. It doesn't matter what you guys think. And that's how it's being taken. And that's how I feel like being Black in America is like 80% of the time. Nobody takes what we say seriously. Nobody's willing to change anything because it hurts our feelings because they don't care because we're only 12% of the population. So just because he came up with this, he used it and he thinks it's right, it doesn't matter how the rest of us feel about it.
I guess and I think that's what I'm saying. I guess that's the thing I'll never understand because in my mind I'm like he's looking at a black woman as a hero. He's trying to continue the work that slavery is still happening
But if
today,
she was a
but it's
hero,
offensive.
why wasn't she walking beside him? Why was she kneeling down and next to him?
We'll see. But I think that comes to interpretation. I looked at it as she was in the front. She was in the front. There's all these people. She's in the front. She's the one holding the lantern. She's hiding the way. So I like when I was like, I didn't even realize, but again, is that my bias? I don't know. To me, I thought I was like, and it made sense to me that she's leading the way when she's one of his great heroes.
But
And
leading
it's
the
not
way
like
to me means that you're in the front and you're walking and you're leading the way. She was on her knees on the side. That's not leading the
in the
way.
front,
Like,
in the front,
yeah, in the front of the painting,
like
yeah.
lighting the way.
on the
But I mean, that,
side in like over here, white man here. Okay, in the front, she's like over here.
but there
Like
was also, but the white man like is not, it's not like, oh, I'm leading the way because I'm white. It's like, I'm leading the way because I'm leading this new
the
organization. And
white
he was
man.
surrounded by abolitionists and people who were fighting slavery all the way through. Abraham Lincoln was in there too. And he actually, I didn't even know this, but Abraham Lincoln lost sight of this the whole, when the war was happening, he completely lost sight. He was like, now it's just North against South. And then Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman were actually the ones who convinced him, that they were like, no, this isn't
Do you
about North
know
versus
what
South.
Abraham Lincoln also said? He said, I don't actually believe that black people are as smart as white people. I just think that like they shouldn't be treated like this. So maybe we should. He also wanted to send us back to Africa, Chelsea. So there's a, so like you want to get into it? We'll get into it, girl, because that man, okay?
Well, I'm not like condoning him. I'm just saying that like they were like, these people were actually the people who were like, hey,
Yeah.
don't lose focus, don't lose direction. These people are enslaved. That's what this is all about. We have to
Well,
set
because
them free.
Frederick Douglass is one of the people who was like, we can't send everybody back to Africa, sir. That's not like, how's
Yeah.
that going to work? That's
Well,
not
like,
going to
and
work.
in essence, like the damage is done. Like you already took them from Africa. This isn't the first generation. You're not taking people back to their
Yeah.
homes. You're
But
taking,
this is a whole nother thing or whatever.
yeah,
But I'm just saying
situation.
that for me, and and I can't speak for all black people, but it's it's so frustrating and hurtful when every day I feel like we're really trying to justify to everybody us just being here. And it seems like it doesn't matter what we hold sacred to us. White people can just come use it because their intent is fine. And whether that's how they mean it or not, that's how it feels and that's how it is taken, especially because teaching black history is so under attack right now, not just in Florida. There's other states too that took away APA, African American studies, and different things. Like they're effectively telling people in history books that, well, slaves learned some good things and they learned good trades and good skills being slaves. That's what our kids are being taught in school right now. So when we're up against that, and then you have something else where it's like, just use something else, dude. That's all we're asking. Use something else. Maybe don't hang the picture in your office or whatever, and then we can just move on. But why hold on to something so hard when you know that it's hurting other people? So we'll move on from that. But
Yeah, but no, I do just want to say, like, I hate that you feel that way, and I hate that I can like, I feel like I hear what you're saying and I feel like I understand it, but then I'm also kind of like, but this isn't about that. But I think that's where the issue is. It's like, this isn't about that to me, but this is about that to you, where I'm like, this isn't about taking something from black people. This is about like focusing and like finishing the work that she started. But like, so it is. I just want to say that I hate that you feel that way, and I hate that like a view that I have makes you feel that way, especially when I'm like, she's she's a hero, she's being lifted up as a hero, we're continuing the work, but then it turns into like, no, it's offensive, and it's just like, that sucks. I hate that. But I mean, I hear you. Like, I don't think, like you said, like I won't get it because I'm not black. And I guess like I don't know, like, but I feel like I would have fought just as hard to end black slavery as I'm trying to work as hard
but
to end.
nobody's saying
I
that
know, I'm
part.
just saying,
Like,
I'm saying personally, I'm saying on a
yeah.
personal level, I just hate that like that's the way that it's taken, when I feel like I can totally see what he's saying, but I don't know. And then it's
I
like,
mean,
but
yeah,
then it's
I
like,
get it. I can see what he's saying too. I get it. I understand. Freedom, Underground Railroad, boom, something very American, specifically all American, something we all know about, a word we've all heard. Harriet Tubman
specific
is a
slavery.
hero. Right. I totally get it. I just think that he should just use something else. Like, it's simple to me. Like, cool. Just don't. But I think for me is like, so what do we do now? So what do you want to tell people after we've watched this movie, after we've talked about it, after you've given such startling numbers? And I really do want, I know me and Chelsea talk a lot about going and looking things up and deep diving, but if you guys look up the numbers of child sex trafficking, sex rape, molestation, the kids going missing after foster care, the number of kids we have currently in group homes, the number of trafficking victims, that is just a number because there's no way of really even knowing this. And then when you watch something like that and you walk away, and I think you do feel a little bit hopeless, right? You feel like this situation is so big. How do we, what do we do now? Like, after I watch this movie, what do we go do? How can we go help? Like, what can our listeners kind of like take away from this?
There's two things that I specifically have been proactive about, but again, I don't want to like use politics but make it fashion to like speak for
No, no,
this
no. Go ahead.
organization.
That's what we're here for.
But one of the organizations that I've reached out to kind of figure out where do we go from here, and it's like
And I love
literally
this. I
and
love
it's
this.
literally taking over my life, and they sent me so much information. But one of the things that I would
Can you
recommend,
share? Can you take pictures of it? Like, are you able? Did you have to sign
some of
NDA or
it.
something? Not all of
No,
it,
no,
but
no,
like just
no, yeah,
show
no, I
what
didn't
you
sign.
got, like the
No, no,
packet
no.
and
It's
stuff.
it's basically a ton of facts. It's basically like how it happens, where it happens, different types of trafficking, and like goes into depth with that. But one of the things that I did was kind of like, this is something that's been heavy on my heart for a long time, for years and years and years and years. It's something that's affected me that I've thought about. But I like me, like I'm sure a lot of other people, I'm kind of like, this makes me sick to my stomach, but what do I even do? Like, I don't even know
Yeah.
what to do about it or like where to go or whatever. So I know something specifically I started to do was if I had like when I would like bonus at work, I would give money to this organization that helps survivors. It's specifically like set up to help get survivors the help that they need. And it is like 24/7 care, um, an establishment. But I also was like, I want to do more than that. And I'm
Mhm.
actually currently in the midst of figuring out what that looks like. But spoiler alert, I'm probably going back to school personally.
Yeah.
But that's and it is actually with Operation Underground Railroad.
I would just like to say that I am making Chelsea go back to school.
Yeah, Amber is making me go back to school. But I actually don't have the number here, but they have been since 2020, since January of 2023, I believe it's something like 400 operations that they have been that have helped extract children and minors out of slavery in all different kind of facets, most of which unfortunately, especially in the United States, is sexual slavery. um, so I'm kind of like, what do I do? How do I help you? How do I partner? And then also to make sure that you research. I literally had to stalk someone's life until I could get someone like on the actual phone, because I'm like, I also don't want to be raising money for survivors and like 30% of it's going
You
to
go
like
into, yes, yeah.
your bonus. Like I really,
Right.
and again, so growing up evangelical or Christian, whatever, there's a lot of pastors who like their whole full-time job is pastoring.
Mhm.
They're not getting a paycheck for that. So a lot of times the church will support the pastor, whatever. It's very, well, not always, but sometimes it's very like structured, whatever. He's not
Mhm.
like whatever. So I understand that. I understand that
Right.
people who are volunteering and are living their lives, like giving their lives to this, they're not making 50
Right.
grand
So
a year.
What Chelsea is talking about is, if you guys have the opportunity to look up any charity organizations you give, even ones that your job does, well, they'll take money directly out of your paycheck, because that's what I did when I was in the Navy. I would do like 10% would go to different organizations. Well, if you look them up, things like the American Red Cross, and you'll see how much percentage of the money is actually going to emergencies, and some of these is less than 2%, it's 1%, and like 80-90% of all the money being given is going to the CEOs and the people in charge and bonuses. So that's what
My
Chelsea's
my
talking about
husband
when
used to
you're,
do my husband used to do the same
yeah.
thing, and then he happened to come across an article where the CEO of this charity bonused $1.5 million. So if you're bonusing, typically a bonus
Yeah.
will be a percentage of what you make. If you're bonusing $1.5 million, that means that your base is way higher than that.
Right. Right.
So
And I
anyway, like
only happened to find out that kind of offhand, kind of like he did. It was during the hurricanes in Haiti. Somebody had said something and I heard it and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God. But yeah,
and that's
so
exactly, so that's something that I was specifically like, I have no problem sending money knowing that like some of it will go to survivors and some of it will go to like help these people to continue to
right.
help survivors get people out of that situation, that hellhole. But then I also was like, I want to do fundraisers for the survivors and I want to make sure 100% of all proceeds go to the survivors. And it's something like, when you do that, it's something like 99.5% of the proceeds go. The other percentages goes to kind of like the office to like
Mm-hmm.
mail this,
Print
send this,
stuff
get
and
this,
mail. Yeah.
and
Right.
like different bank transfers and stuff like that. But it's like the vast majority. I think it's like 99.2% goes to the survivors. So that's something that I'm working on right now, is learning how to host a fundraiser to raise awareness. Number one, first and foremost, so not to raise awareness because it's trendy or sexy or like what everyone's doing, but to raise awareness to hopefully
There is an
effectuate
episode
change.
of American Dad where the charity was called Raising Awareness. Like it was just,
Exactly.
they were
Because it's
like,
like
what are you
the
doing? We're
thing
raising awareness.
for raising awareness. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's, but like to actually like, again, like this is something that I'm passionate about, but I also want to make it clear, like when I'm passionate about it, I don't want to come on here and talk about 2 million pieces of sexual child abuse material and also something like 70 million child sex abuse materials in the United States worldwide, and 78% of those files are children under 12. Like, I don't want to talk about that. That's horrific. It makes me sick to my stomach. But we talk about it so that people can know, like,
Yeah.
this is a nightmare. This is a bad movie,
Yeah.
but it's like actually happening
Also, a lot of that
globally.
stuff, people have it on their work computers. Just so you guys know, just any bosses out there, HR people, you know.
I hope that they're fired. But so all that to say, like that's something that I'm learning how to do, is host these fundraisers to raise funds for survivors, and then also to get awareness out. So also too, in these events that we're hosting, I'm also hoping to have opportunities to speak to people about, like, please don't get it twisted that this is happening in Bogota, Colombia only.
Mhm.
Like please check your child's Instagram, please check your child's Snapchat, because this is truly an epidemic of like the
Mhm.
sickest kind, and it's happening in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, just like it's happening in Columbia. It's happening in Scranton, Pennsylvania, just like it's happening in Columbia. And it's never your kids, but it could always be your kids.
Yeah.
So to raise awareness at like a global understanding, but also to of like a personal effect, and like too, like I forget what it is, but this is basically when people abuse kids, it's typically a learned behavior. It's very
Mhm.
rarely people just start to like attack children. So you think about that. Like these pedophiles, some of them, most of them, were, things happened to them as well. They were abused, and now it's perpetuating and it's growing and it's festering. And now kids all over the world, like this is what we're dealing with. So like to raise awareness and hopefully stop it before it happens to somebody else and all of that. Something else you can do is look up the Spear Fund. One thing I want to make sure that I'm also clear about for myself personally is to know this is research that I'm doing. This is something I'm working on. I'm still learning. I'm trying to figure out how to research. I'm not the poster child for OUR. I'm not like everything I do, I love and everything. But when it comes to saving kids, I'm here for it. So in that sense, but please do your own research, and you can definitely find other um organizations that work again in this fight. These are two of the ones that I'm going to talk about, are the ones that I've seen doing the most, and also like the most above board when it comes to finances and how much is
Mhm.
actually going to who.
Yeah.
But also another organization is the Spear Fund. Again, I am not the poster child for the Spear Fund. Tim
I've
Ballard
never
kind of,
even heard of that. What is it?
so Tim Ballard actually started working with them, and I think it's brought attention to them. Basically, it's a fund. They'll get information that there is a slavery situation. And what they do is they fund the organization to extract the victim and put them in support systems. So like what's it called, like therapy and all of that, medical, because a lot of times these people need a lot of medical attention. So the Spear Fund, that's what it does. It's like they don't work with any specific person. Like we hear about this, we get intel, we look it up, we work with officers, and we send in extra feet on the ground. Or if there's different places all over the world where they don't have any budget to
Yeah.
go in and
Right.
extract a child, even if it's happening. So the Spear Fund will literally find out, they do all the research intel, and then they send their own people to extract these kids and get them the help that they need. And it's like all over the world. So he's basically helping them raise money to just do different operations to get people out. So he's not like he's not like a part of them, he doesn't like make money, but I think he's just like actually being one of the extractors, or
Yeah.
working, setting up his teams to extract people out of slavery. For example, one thing that they're literally working on right now in Africa is it's an organ harvesting center.
Mhm.
So they took children, they exploit them sexually, they rape them, they impregnate them on purpose. The baby is born, baby gets to a certain age, they might use the baby for rape, and then also they'll use the baby for organs. And
For
then
stem cells
when the mom is, yeah, when the mom is like no good anymore, or if she's like not doing well because they're not getting proper medical care, they'll take
right.
her organs. So it's like a whole literal hellhole of stealing organs,
Yeah, I
making
think
babies.
there's a great documentary out there. It might be on Vice about organ harvesting. That is, y'all. Ooh, ooh,
And I
and
think I
I
think that's
mean,
another
it's
thing
basically if you have
too.
enough money, you can buy whatever you need.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like a lot of times, like I'd never heard of that. Like I had heard of, like I'd seen like crazy shows where they're like stealing people and selling,
Yeah.
but like that was a crazy show to me. I didn't realize, because I'm very lower class, like lower middle class. I didn't realize that, like, oh no, like there's people who aren't gonna wait on a transplant list because they're a billionaire, so they're gonna get their organ somehow. They want that heart somehow. They need
Yeah.
that lung somehow. So it's like that's what they're
Or
doing.
even I found that what they do is they'll just pay people for it. So like I could pay you for your kidney and then you
Yeah.
would voluntarily give it to me. But I'm kind of like I'm paying you, but also kind of like holding you ransom for that because I know you need, you're homeless or your kids need whatever. So I'm paying you for it. It is a transactional thing, but it's not really voluntary. And that's what a lot of that is, to where they'll say people are signing up or signing their kids up or willingly giving their kids over because they're thinking like, okay, well, we're going to get $50,000. My kid's going to be healthy and fine. They're just going to only have one kidney. Sadly, that's just not, that's not how it ends up going, but that's how people are led to believe in these things. So kind of a loophole they do is to where it's not forced, quote unquote, because it is voluntary, but that is definitely part of it. And there is a really, really big need for that, for organs, for different things. I mean, there's that one guy who was taking black women's like blood and stem cells and stuff to make himself younger. Peter Nygaard, was that Peter Nygaard? Yeah. And stuff, girl, it's a mess out here. Yeah, he was taking women from like the Caribbean. Girl, it was a whole thing.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
But that's actually something that they're literally working on right now. And I know that, like, I was looking into it, I was researching organ harvesting, and it rocked my world. So that is, I believe it's the Spear Fund, all one word.org. So look into that. And then also ourrescue.org, OURRESCUE.org. Those are two organizations, and there's like a lot of little ones. The smaller ones are a lot harder to find information on. Like what specific, like we understand that you're like standing against trafficking, but like what specifically are you doing? So that's why I'm using two of those organizations you may or may not have heard of. The one is affiliated with the movie, and again, it's because it's a lot easier to like find
Right, because
information
I
on
was
it.
trying to kind of find some here as well when we were talking, and like you can find them in roundabout ways or places that help trafficking victims or survivors, but not necessarily who do the whole work or really like what they even do. So you may find a shelter in your area who supports trafficking victims and women and different things, but
Exactly.
they might not all of their that's not their main job or like
Right.
their main focus. Yeah.
I can't remember it, but there was a name of one I was looking into, and like I like it took me forever, but I basically found out that what they do is post on Instagram like different facts, different statistics to
Oh
raise
yeah.
awareness, but that's all they do. Like they have nothing to do with, but they were like
They
absolutely
raise
accepting
awareness.
donations. Like they were accepting donations for it, and I was like, oh, so you just like post pictures on like, I mean, I'm not trying to like throw anybody under the bus because I personally feel like I can post pictures on the internet for free, but you know, either way, all I'm saying is those are the two that, again, I don't know that they're perfect. I don't know that the founders are perfect. I do know that there is a trail so you can see where your money is
Yeah.
going, how it's being used. And they're also extremely honest about like, okay, so one of the things they said, like when you donate to OUR, like specifically if you just like to like their organization, 70% of every donation that they get goes to survivors.
Yeah.
30% goes to taking like
Yeah. And I don't
facilitating.
think people mind. Like people understand people need to get
Yeah.
paid. People gotta
Yeah.
eat. You know, you gotta
Right.
buy paper and
But a lot of these things like they don't offer numbers
mhm.
like the United Way or like Red Cross, and then you have to go looking and you realize you're like, oh,
Why is it so complicated?
so 85% of all proceeds are unaccounted for and 15% go to survive. Like it's crazy.
It's not.
So
It's
that's
probably not
something.
even 15%. So
Right. So it's like that's something that I can get behind. So with that knowledge, with what I'm working with what they've sent me to like really study up and become aware on, that's what I would definitely recommend. I always will always say do your research, and
guys,
I am
we're new merch coming out, raising awareness.
raising awareness, foundation for raising awareness. And then that's something too. So Amber said in the beginning that this is my last episode, and that is the reason why I feel like I've talked on here 1,000 times about like my 97 jobs and I'm always doing this and I'm always doing that. I have pulled way back on everything that I'm doing because I am looking into becoming a trauma counselor for survivors of human trafficking, which is a long road, which I feel I'm already a little like all
That's so
over the
funny
place.
that you're gonna be a trauma counselor and I'm a social worker because at the end of the day we need a new podcast now. We need like
Okay. So right when I finish school, I'll do it. So anyway, that's something that I'm like looking into. That's whatever. So that's why I'm pulling back. Where am I going? I'm going to school. I'm going to hit the books. Right now, I haven't even gotten that far. I'm really just looking into like how what I can do right now. But I know that ultimately I want this to be what I do full time, like 100%. I think this is the best possible way I could ever spend my time, my resources, my mind, my support, my ears, everything. So that is something that I've decided to step back from a lot of different things. Unfortunately, one of them is the podcast. While I figure that out, while I try to raise funds, but I will definitely be. This is not the last you're hearing from me. Okay, so don't even think you're getting off that easy because I'll be back. Period. But that's where I'll be.
yeah. So I
So for
definitely,
those,
one of the reasons I started this podcast and we started is because I wanted to raise awareness and I wanted this to be a platform for us to talk about different issues and things and stuff that was important to me, you, motherhood, politics, all of that. But we also found that there was so much stuff that people just didn't know, that people weren't aware of, whether it was news issues, stupid pop culture stuff, whatever it was that people just didn't know. So we joke around and stuff like that, but this is definitely a platform to be informative and to inform people. And that's why I really wanted to start it. So it definitely can always be a platform for you to use, Chelsea, for you to come on here and for you to talk about the things that you're doing as well. And if anybody, has any ideas of where she could go to become a counselor, any online programs or schools and stuff, I would offer my school because it's an amazing social work program, the best in the Northeast, but they don't have a big online program and stuff. So if any of our listeners out there could definitely give us some info about that. But yeah, so the podcast format will be changing up for season 3. You guys will be getting a lot of this over here. Okay. And but we will be back soon. And honestly, guys, this is going to be our 1-year anniversary of Politics But Make It Fashion coming up for September. So we will have Chelsea on for a, anniversary episode and stuff like that. I don't know. I want to do something for our anniversary,
Yeah,
I don't know.
like happy anniversary to us.
Right, right. Definitely need some Prosecco, some frozen
Love
grapes,
Prosecco.
a nice cheese board.
Stop. That's my last meal. Like that's what
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, but Chelsea, is there anything else that you would like to add before we go?
I would just like to reiterate, and I feel like we do a decent job communicating this, but if we haven't, at least this episode, I feel like it's there. A lot of times we come on here and we talk about stuff and we try to find the answers and the facts and all of this, that, and the third. But like Amber said, I hope that everyone who does listen to this and consumes this also takes it and does something about it, especially if it bothers you, especially if it's something that you think about randomly or whatever the case might be. Please, we don't just do it to raise awareness. We want to raise awareness, but we want to raise awareness because we want to again effectuate change.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point. And so there's so many things that I feel like we talk about all the time that we're like, if this could be fixed or if this could be met or if this could be reached, then like we would all be in a better place. So if I could leave you with anything, it would just be to be proactive, to don't be just an American consumer.
Yeah.
Definitely see what you can do. I know we're all busy. There are ways, like nobody could ever tell me that I had time for anything. And like we make time for the things that matter. So I feel like you be encouraged. And if you don't know what you're doing, try to take like literally take my example. Not because it's great, but just because like I don't know what to do, but I'm
We
trying
both
and I'm
just
trying
wing
to
it,
figure it
guys.
out.
We wing it. We
We're
get an
winging it.
idea
We're trying.
and we
And
go for it.
but I feel like that's how change is made when you make the move. And like you know how they say energy attracts energy, energy begets energy. So if you make a move on something we've talked about or something that's near and dear to you, just make the move. You can absolutely, this is going to sound cheesy, but I mean it. You can absolutely make a difference in some ways that you probably would never even think are possible, but
Right.
make a move. Make a
Yeah,
move.
and we will be keeping you informed. I'll be keeping you informed about what Chelsea's doing. One thing we did talk about that I just wanted to talk about really quick is we're going to be coming up with something for the holidays to do as far as helping survivors of trafficking. We're not sure yet which angle we're going to do, but me and Jacqueline, my daughter, normally for Thanksgiving, we would go deliver meals or we make Christmas baskets for people who are in rehab facilities. So we do a lot of stuff on our end, and I really want this year to do something specifically for trafficking victims. So we'll be coming to you guys with what we're going to figure out to do for that for the holidays. And, I just want to say,
Girl, it's okay. I already cried too.
oh God. It has truly been a pleasure.
And it always will be.
Yes.
Because we're still going to be having these same conversations, just not recorded. Via Marco, via text, via whatever. But no.
We Marco each other and we talk for like an hour on this.
all day, every day. But no, the pleasure is all mine.
So thank you so much, Chelsea, for making this a wonderful 2 seasons of Politics But Make It Fashion. And stay tuned, guys, for season 3. Ignore all of this. Okay.
No, don't ignore it. We love it.
You guys can find us on Facebook. We have a new Facebook page. So it's Politics But Make It Fashion on Facebook, and on Instagram, Politics But Make It Fashion 1, and on TikTok, Politics But Make It Fashion. So please give us a like and subscribe, and we will chat soon.
Bye.